A very happy Halloween to you and yours out there. The Arkansas Razorbacks decided to get into the spirit of the holiday and scare Cougar Nation with a jet that landed in Provo, Utah yesterday. While it may have just been a stopover for the Hogs, the bigger point is that Kalani Sitake and his staff, there's interest in them across the country.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast, and as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Coming up on today's show, we are going to answer the questions that were sent in to me by our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. It's a bye week for the BYU football program. We got basketball kicking off the season on Monday. We're going to talk football in this first segment. Arkansas flying a jet into Provo. We'll get into all that. We'll talk some hoops, and then we'll also get to some questions, maybe more off-the-cuff stuff as we progress throughout today's show. And, of course, it's all brought to you today by our friends over at Mazda. We like to say, like our players, we set every single detail because we make every move count. Pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, courtesy of Mazda. Move and be moved. All right, so let's dive right in on today's show. And the bigger questions that came into me when I threw it out to our Locked On Cougars Insider Group dealt with the situation of Arkansas flying a jet into Provo, Utah. Now, it only spent a short time on the ground in Provo before taking off and ultimately landing in Eugene, Oregon. Wow, are the Arkansas Razorbacks going to steal Dan Lanning? Are they picking up Kalani Sitake or Jay Hill on the way and creating a coaching dynasty? Here's the deal. These jets, they're obviously flying to different areas of the country for whatever reasons that they are. BYU is going to have coaches like Kalani Sitake and also guys like Jay Hill who are going to garner interest from across the country. I've talked about this ad nauseum earlier this week. I did an entire show almost built around talking about that. Actually, two shows in many respects. The bigger point is some of you asked me about this, said that, is there anything to make of this, that Arkansas be flying a jet, even if it's refueling? Do you believe it's the ruse that it was a refueling stop for the Arkansas Razorbacks? I do believe it was a refueling stop because, quite honestly, the time frame of when it landed versus when it took off, you would have had to have Kalani Sitake or Jay Hill right there on the tarmac to meet with whoever was in that jet, and then all of a sudden be taken off once again. I also don't believe for a second that BYU's coaches on a week when they're 8-0, ranked in the top 10 in the country, they're going to be taking visits with the likes of an SEC middling program like the Arkansas Razorbacks. Sam Pittman is out, and yes, Arkansas needs to find a new coach. The bigger point is, and I've made this point before, when UCLA and the interest reportedly about Kalani Sitake arose after they fired their head coach, is that I believe that BYU, their coaches, even if they're not intent on leaving Provo, and I don't believe for a second that Kalani is looking to leave Provo, could there be a program that makes an offer that he can't refuse? That's always a possibility, but I don't for a second think that Kalani Sitake is looking for an exit to leave BYU high and dry. The bigger point is he can meet with these programs, whether it's in Arkansas or literally anybody else, and use it as a chance to get some recon and do some research on how other programs are approaching this new era of college football. Now, when I raised that before on the podcast, those of you who might recall, I got a lot of people getting mad at me saying, well, that's disingenuous. Why would you even take the opportunity to meet with people, even if you're not interested? Here's the deal. In business, as in life, as in coaching, you just talk to people. You want to get to know people. You don't want to burn bridges. You want to build connections with people. That's what it's all about, it feels like. So while I don't believe that Arkansas is going to lure a guy like Kalani Sitake away from Provo, Utah, and I'd be hard-pressed to say that Jay Hill wants to move to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. The bigger point is there's going to be interest from multiple programs in these coaches as BYU continues to do what they're doing. When you have a program like BYU who has won 19 of their last 21 games, it's the same mark that the number 2 team in the country right now, the Indiana Hoosiers, they have the same mark over the last 21 games. And Curt Cignetti just got, as mentioned, $93 million in a contract extension. BYU is going to have a lot of people kind of milling around and looking at that program saying, hey, can we pick off something from BYU that can help us get better? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I think I just knocked out with my answer without actually putting the questions up of about, I don't know, 15 to 20 of the questions that were sent in to me regarding the Arkansas deal. But understand that while there is interest in BYU's coaches, BYU is also not intent on letting them just walk out the door. In eras past, BYU would have been like, hey, we have a certain amount of money that we can offer you. And if you can't abide by it, hey, we thank you for the time. It's not the case anymore. BYU's got boosters who are ultra motivated to make sure that BYU is in the best financial position it possibly can be in. And also, BYU is making more money in general just from being a member of the Big 12 Conference than they literally have ever made before. So BYU, while they may be that little engine that could for many, many decades until recently, the nice part is BYU's got money and they got cash and they can use it to make sure that everybody's taken care of so far as they possibly can work it out. So that's just answered, I think, a litany of questions. I think I got answers to almost everyone that came in on that front. Other questions that have come in. Okay, Shannon asked this. Kalani was talking about player switching positions. I would assume to add depth at running back. Who would you recommend switching set positions, and could players effectively switch positions at midseason? It's always a hit or miss thing with regards to moving guys midseason, but I'll tell you one guy in particular who moved midseason and didn't affect him one bit was one Tyler Algier. Remember, Tyler Algier was simply looking for a chance as a preferred walk-on with the BYU football program. He came in as a running back, realized, hey, I just need to get on the field to play. He moved to linebacker and started a game against Boise State 1 year at linebacker. And then the very next year, remember, he just ran roughshod over the Broncos the very next year as a stud running back for the BYU football program. I think I got my timeline right on that. So it can work out. Are there people on BYU's roster that could be a candidate to move to running back? Yeah, I think somebody pointed out to me on social media yesterday, Lucky Finau, former running back, is now playing linebacker for BYU. I believe he's still on the roster. He might be an option to maybe try out at running back. But the other thing is, you have walk-ons like a Logan Payne, who was an all-state running back at Weber High School. That last name, if it sounds familiar, it should. He is the son of BYU kicking legend Matt Payne. And I can tell you, Logan and Tyler, who's also a linebacker with BYU, they are just dogged competitors. So I'd be hard pressed to say not to give those guys a shot to play. Other questions that came in. Would Kalani would never leave for Arkansas, right? Okay, that question that came in from Jeff. Also this, Ryan, I know that Kalani Sitake would love to have all these coaches stay in the event, but in the event that Jay Hill gets an offer somewhere, or A-Rod goes somewhere, is there a coach on the staff you can see taking their spots? Now, with regards to Jay Hill, I think there's a handful of options there because you have at least 4 coaches that I can recall on the defensive staff who've got defensive coordinator experience, those being Kelly Papinga, Justin Enna, Chad Kawaha'a, who's an analyst for BYU, and also Gary Anderson. They've all got coordinating experience on the defensive side of the football. Flipping over to the offense, the only one that, if I recall, has been an offensive coordinator at any level is Fesi Sitake, and I think Fesi would be a very natural person to think that you'd elevate him to that offensive coordinator position. But a name to consider, let's say A-Rod were to leave BYU, Matt Mitchell. Matt Mitchell is highly thought of in coaching circles and working as the quarterback's coach for BYU. He's essentially Aaron Roderick's right-hand man. He's got a front row seat to watching how BYU's game plans come together. I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Matt Mitchell got that opportunity to move up, whether move from quarterback's coach to offensive coordinator while retaining the quarterback's label. Absolutely could play into effect. Other questions that have come in. Caden, are Tiger and Bear their real names? Now, as I understand it, they are not. I also don't know what their given names are. So you're kind of catching me with my pants down there, Caden. But he also says this. What is Bear's connection to Boston? He was spotted wearing a Bruins jersey in that picture with Adam Sandler. My wife, who grew up in Boston, is very curious. Now, if you've been paying attention and you're a fan of Adam Sandler movies, you will note that in Happy Gilmore, the original and the remake they just put out, not the remake, the sequel they put out recently, he is a Boston Bruins fan. He is wearing that jersey in the original Happy Gilmore movie because he's a hockey player who moves over to golf. So that's why Bear was wearing the Bruins jersey, because it's what Happy Gilmore wore, Adam Sandler wore in that movie. And also Tiger Bachmeyer was wearing a Bobby Boucher jersey from The Waterboy, some of the just great classic movies in the Adam Sandler collection. Let's see, other questions moving along here. We got a ton of them here. Dylan, any news on the recruiting front? Are we expected to get any more commits before the early signing period? BYU is working diligently, and I talked about it yesterday. That regards to Traden Bessinger, he very well may be interested in BYU, and he's making an official visit. He could be one to keep an eye on in terms of a commitment ahead of the early signing window, but I don't expect a ton of action, to be quite honest, just because at this point in the year, you'd have to be a pretty incredible, unearthed gem, it feels like, a diamond in the rough, who really emerged in their high school season to be picking up the interest to sign in the early signing window. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I also don't expect it for BYU. Matt, any news on Jackson Gates? I saw that Missouri is pushing to get him. Yes, I did see that as well. Missouri's making a strong push for BYU's cornerback commit, who BYU previously flipped from Syracuse. We'll see what happens. Gates seems very open to the idea of playing in the SEC and for the Missouri Tigers, but I also will never count out a guy like Gennaro Guilford in a recruiting battle, because Gennaro, he is absolutely dogged on the recruiting trail, and I think that he'll absolutely be chasing him hard down the stretch here. Russell, my big question is, if Bessinger does come to BYU, what keeps Ryder Lyons at BYU? That's a good question from Russell. I hate to simplify it this much, but I will just do just that. NIL. He has a certain amount of money that's been promised to him in an NIL deal with BYU, even though he's going on a mission, he's already agreed to it. And that money, if he doesn't show up at BYU, it's gone. So I hate to simplify it that much. The other thing is, I don't believe for a second that guys like Ryder Lyons and Traden Bessinger, they're not that weak-minded to think they can't win the job at BYU. In fact, they are competitors, and they will be thinking, all right, great, bring in the guys. I'm just going to fend them all off, and I'm just going to win the job and be the man for the BYU football program. So I don't think Ryder Lyons will be dissuaded one way or the other if Traden Bessinger does or does not pick the Cougars. All right. Ton more questions to get to, man. I feel like I've gotten through maybe a third, maybe not even a third of these, but we'll get to as many of them as we can in the time remaining. A lot of good questions on the BYU basketball front as well. I want to get to those next as we roll on this. What you want to talk about Friday, essentially, a Halloween Friday right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. This episode is brought to you by moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is Faletau Satuala's pick six. Come on. What an incredible play it was. It absolutely ensured BYU would get out of Ames, Iowa with a big win. And the best part was the little Michael Jordan hands up, like, oh, who me? That I loved it. Every bit of that moment was absolutely incredible. So Faletau Satuala obviously is the winner this week from our friends over at Mazda. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. And it's all courtesy of your friends over at Mazda. We like to say, move and be moved. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, I told my brother I would do this to give him and his buddies a shout out. So he says that we will take a shout out on your next podcast. The Dingbats, by the way, is a great name for an intramural softball team. So the Dingbats were the BYU Idaho fall semester intramural co-ed third place finishers. He says we would sure appreciate a shout out. Grant, my youngest brother, actually, I'm the oldest of seven, as many of you might recall. Third place. Cool. Good for you. So congratulations to the Dingbats up there at BYU Idaho. So hope you guys enjoyed your shout out. But as always, thank you for your support of this podcast and hope you guys are having a fantastic Halloween wherever you might be. In the spirit of the holiday, I am wearing my Salt Lake City 316 shirt. It's in honor of WWE being in Salt Lake City tonight and tomorrow night. SmackDown tonight at the Delta Center, and then Saturday night's main event tomorrow at the Delta Center. And I will be there in spirit because I will be unable to attend either night. And unfortunate, but hey, dad duties and work duties call. But I am a big WWE fan and excited to have them in town for a big weekend across the board when it comes to the WWE. All right. On to more questions here, because that's beside the point. On the basketball front, some great questions here from Donovan. First off, since there's no football game this weekend and basketball starts on Monday, what do you think the chances are that we, speaking of BYU, pull off that win in Las Vegas against Villanova? To simplify it, very high. I believe that BYU is getting a Villanova squad that, while Nova's got a strong history of late, because obviously Jay Wright led them to a national title, things fell off under Kyle Neptune, and that's why he was fired, if I recall correctly. He may have left of his own volition, but they have a new head coach in, who's the Maryland coach, but it's a bit of a rebuild project with the Villanova Wildcats, and BYU, they should be able to handle Villanova in Las Vegas. It's a really, really high-profile matchup, obviously, down there in the T-Mobile Center. And if you're going down to Las Vegas, I'm jealous. It should be a fantastic matchup on Monday night. Also on the basketball front, Jared says this: are there other basketball recruits in the pipeline at the AJ level, speaking of the top 5 in the country, that BYU could get a shot at after AJ leaves in 1 year? I'm curious about how the 26-27 team outlook is, or will we drop to a good but not great team again? Let's put it this way. Kevin Young has no intention of letting things backslide at BYU. I'll say that right at the outset. Now, are they chasing top-tier talent? Yes, they are, but I'm unaware, at least from my vantage point and what I understand about recruiting, that BYU is in the mix for anybody who is, like I said, what you mentioned, a top 5 talent. But guys that they're after, Austin Gooseby, I'm telling you, keep an eye on Austin Gooseby. He is a fantastic, fantastic basketball player. And as a high school athlete, I think more and more BYU is going to be more of a force in terms of using the transfer portal, the international market to kind of round out the roster, if not make that the crux of what they bring in. But top tier high school talent like Austin Gooseby will always be guys that BYU chases. While they may not be, speaking of Gooseby, like an AJ where he's a top 5 prospect in the class, I'm telling you, the tools, the potential, everything is in there. And that's why I think Kevin Young has kind of narrowed in on him in that next recruiting class. But I do think that the transfer portal, international circuit, that's going to be more of what BYU's jam is in terms of bringing talent into the basketball program. All right, rolling along here, more questions. Good question from Riker. What's it like working in the media field? What is your relationship with other radio guys like Mitch Harper? What's the best part? What's the most difficult part? Well, what's it like working in the media field? It's a dream come true. Now, I say that adding in this caveat that it is an absolute grind. Trust me. My wife has never not known me to be doing what I do. Speaking of doing radio, and for the past 7 years, doing this podcast, I'm essentially kind of doing 2 different things every single day. To her everlasting credit, she makes up for a lot of what I miss out on in terms of day-to-day stuff because I'm out at games, I'm doing press conferences and the like. I love being involved in the sports world, the day-to-day nature of the news cycle. And that also can be the most difficult part because it literally doesn't stop. It just keeps going and going and going. And it can lead to some burnout. Trust me, I've had compatriots in the past who have essentially forced themselves out of the business because they can't hang with how just much of a grinder it can be. I've been lucky enough I've been able to balance it. And by the way, a lot of it that I appreciate is that you and Cougar Nation are very patient with me because I think that could I be a more polished podcaster? Yeah, I probably could, but many of you know that this is not my main gig. Maybe down the line it becomes that. We're talking many, many months down the line, it feels like, if not years. But I appreciate the grace that you guys have extended to me. I use that term grace under pressure not that long ago. Well, I'm in a little bit of a pressure cooker situation with what I do on a day-to-day basis. And you out there, the grace you guys have extended to me as your host here, absolutely phenomenal. And your support, it does not go unnoticed. Trust me, it means the world to me. Now, talk about my relationship with other radio guys like Mitch Harper. Now, Mitch does a great job. He's more of a digital content creator where he's more writing. He's obviously venturing more into video now, doing his podcast with Cougar Tracks over there with KSL, which is a company that I work for as well. The nice part about Mitch is he and I knew each other before we got into the media. I have known Mitch for many, many years, and we are good friends first and foremost. So that's what I love about that. I've got good relationships by and large across the board with most of the other media members out there. And I just like talking to them. And we have conversations more often about other things outside of sports than we do actually on the sports topics or teams that we cover. So hopefully that answers your question, Riker, but I love what I do. I truly love it. It's a dream come true. And I hope it shows in the work I put in. So I appreciate all of you for your support in this venture. All right. Other questions that have come in here. Who are the players that you think will play in the NFL? This comes in from Jason. Jack Kelly, Isaiah Glasker, LJ Martin, Isaiah Jada, Andrew Gentry, Waylon Lapuaho. Tanner Wall probably gets a look. Speaking of a safety, I think down the line, Bear Bachmeier probably gets a look. The nice part is BYU is adding more and more NFL caliber talent to this roster, seemingly every single year. And while it may not pay off maybe this coming season with multiple draft picks, I think that you could probably expect 2 in Jack and Isaiah. I think Isaiah's time still remaining on his eligibility clock, but I fully expect that he will explore his NFL options. But I'm telling you, in coming years, it's going to be more and more NFL draft picks. And the nice part is they come from across the roster, for the BYU football program. Let's see, Jason, is there other positions other than tailback and linebacker that BYU desperately needs recovery from during this off week? Those are obviously the two that need to rest up, but quite frankly, BYU needs a break across the board. They have had since yesterday off, speaking of the BYU football program, they have Thursday through Monday off. And a lot of guys probably are traveling home to spend some time with their family. I think there was a post or somebody sent me a post from somewhere that said that the Bachmeyers are spotted flying to California. They're not the only ones. It's some downtime. It's a chance to get away for just a little bit, decompress a bit, but at the same time, stay engaged, watch some film, and more importantly, rest up and heal up as much as possible. Get that extra STEM session. And speaking of just making sure that you're as healthy as you possibly can be for the stretch run. Tyler, if a guy like Tiger has already graduated from Stanford, has he also enrolled at BYU, and what does that look like? Is that a grad student situation? So he has graduated from Stanford, and as I understand it, Tiger is in BYU's MBA program, their Master of Business Administration. So that's really cool to see that. And yes, he does need to be enrolled. To play college football, you have to be a student at the university. It's just them's the rules. Now, is it getting a little more fast and loose with said rules? Yes, but it is still first and foremost an academic endeavor, and he is in the MBA program at BYU. Let's see. He also said he said this year and next year, if he works towards his goal of reaching the NFL, it sounds like he will be back next year as well. If he's not, I'd be very, very stunned because his brother's the starting quarterback. He's got eligibility remaining, and being in the MBA program at BYU, I don't think he's doing the 1-year program. I think he's doing maybe more spread out to be able to focus on football, and he is chasing his dream of playing in the NFL. Edwin, why do you think our offensive line is not rated higher? To me, the on-field performance is great, but the grading system keeps putting them there at the lower end of the Big 12. Now, I think you're probably talking about like Pro Football Focus and the like. Here's the deal. It's an inexact science, and Pro Football Focus, even though they put out these grades, what PFF is actually there for is for programs, let's say like a BYU, to get raw data that they collect from all the games. They just happen to have added on an element where they grade these players. The problem with PFF is there is not an understanding of what the scheme or play call is when they're watching this tape. They're guessing. And for example, I would guarantee, and I think I saw the PFF grades for like Tanner Wall against Iowa State were downgraded because of the opening play. They thought that Tanner Wall was supposed to be in coverage when Faletau Satuala got burned. If you watch the play in its entirety, a guy like Tanner Wall is sucked down because the play call has him covering a different part of the field than he typically does, speaking of the deep third. Well, all of a sudden, Faletau Satuala gets burned on that play. Tanner Wall tries to chase it down and score a touchdown, and somehow that downgrades a guy like Tanner Wall. That's, I think, that therein lies the issue that I have with Pro Football Focus, is they do not get the full picture, and it costs. Cost is probably a strong term, but it hurts, I guess, the perception of these players with said grades. Jordan, odds of beating Tech with LJ versus without. With LJ, 60-ish%. Without him, 35-40%. It's not great. Not to have LJ is a really, really tough deal to consider for BYU. So other questions there. Don, if LJ is out for Texas Tech, I wish A-Rod would use an extra tight end for blocking, then be an outlet in the pass game, or convert a backup defensive lineman with the quickest feet to be a fullback for extra pass protection. Says Bear is more accurate when he has time to pass. Also, it would be so nice if A-Rod implemented a new offensive, quote, wrinkle that surprised Texas Tech that would give them problems. I can assure you that a guy like Aaron Roderick is not going to be caught flat-footed. Knowing what I know of A-Rod, he will have what he calls those specials, those wrinkles that'll be interspersed into his play calling. And yes, maybe using a defensive lineman for some extra protection or getting another tight end on the field, it's not a bad thing. The nice part is there are options on the roster for BYU. Ethan Erickson, Kean Need, Noah Moiaki, they have all seen time for BYU at tight end this year, and they can obviously play in tandem with Carson Ryan, who, by the way, is an absolute dog when it comes to blocking, and they'll make sure that he's taken care of. We'll see what happens with regards to the health status of LJ. It's anybody's guess at this point. Trust me, those of you in the insider group know how back and forth, whiplash nature it's been in terms of the reports on that. But as always, we'll keep you apprised of it as members of the insider group as much as we possibly can. All right. we'll get through some more questions. Like a lot of good stuff. Some other basketball thoughts. There's also some football thoughts and some off the field questions as well. So we'll continue to get to all these. This is my favorite type of show, by the way. I know I come in a lot of times with very structured shows because it's kind of what we do here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But the nice part is I can kind of let my hair down, and I don't really have that long a hair, but you get what I'm talking about when it comes to these type of shows. We'll get to more of these questions coming up next as we roll on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by our friends at DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streak, saving you more every time you order. These players deliver when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For BYU this week, I am giving it to Bear Bachmeier. He put BYU on his back against Iowa State and helped them win that game as they fell behind 24-10, but finished with a 31-3 win to get out of Ames with that victory. He had no hesitation, no delay, and if you've been watching week after week, this performance is not as fluke. Trust me, Bear is on a streak. And just like Bear delivered for BYU, DoorDash delivers on your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you can save every Saturday that you order, stack it up all season long, save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. The promo period does run through 11/18. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA season is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action with our friends over at FanDuel as they are official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game and want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks and quite literally anything beyond that. If you want to do it, the best part is you can combine all of your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel as they are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you want to be asking questions like many have today on today's show, sign up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. It's $5 a month to be a part of the group. Get the inside scoop that you want about BYU sports coming directly to your phone in the form of a text message. As I mentioned, it's $5 a month. You get a 14-day free trial before you're charged a single penny, and the link is in the show notes below. And if you can't get it figured out, reach out to us via social media or email, and we'll get you squared away as members of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right, settle in. By the way, it's gonna be a long edition of the podcast. We're gonna go over time, but a lot of other good questions coming in here, and I want to get this one out of the way right now. This comes in from David. I think I got it here. Let's see. Maybe I don't. Maybe I do. Oh, there's right there. Jake, you wore some new hats recently on the podcast I have never seen before. Where can I get them? Well, stand by for a second. I'm gonna grab something here, and the bigger point is there is a group called CapX out there, and I think my audio probably dropped as I was grabbing this. And CapX sent me this cool box. It's got a really cool logo on it. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's not going to help you in the audio format. And essentially, they sent me a bunch of hats, and they are exclusive one-on-one deals. It says limited by design, defined by heritage, and reserved for the few. And they're exclusive hats from CapX, and David and the company over there at CapX was kind enough to send it out to me. And I appreciate them even thinking about me doing what I do. And the hats are awesome. They are absolutely phenomenal. And I know the CapX has really done a really, really good job with regards to making inroads in the sporting industry. So big thank you to David. And that hopefully answers your question. I don't know if they're going to go on sale at some point. As I mentioned, they're they're limited by design, and they were sent out to, I guess, an exclusive bunch of people. So I guess I'm on the inside crowd. Kind of cool to be that for once. All right. So more questions here. What are your thoughts on style points? This comes from Curtis. It seems like Kalani operates in ways to not run up the score. But many folks at BYU if they were to win by bigger margins and get those so-called style points, BYU might get more respect and be ranked higher. Granted, coming from behind to win like BYU likes to do doesn't always lend itself to blowout wins. But would BYU be ranked higher if they were winning by bigger margins? I think marginally, yes. I guess you can look at the Indiana example and what a guy like Kurt Signetti does, because he doesn't mind running it up on his opponents. That goes like contrary to everything that's in Kalani Sitake's soul. Like, I just don't see that happening, but it could obviously lend itself to BYU maybe ranked a little bit higher. But the biggest thing that happens that you need to do is just win. to use the old Al Davis line, just win, baby, and life will take care of itself. Mark, I prefer the BYU gets a home game as to having a bye if they make the college football playoff. I think a home playoff game at Lavelle Edwards Stadium on December 20th, hopefully against a warm weather team, would be absolutely incredible for the program, the University of the State of Utah. Not only to mention how insane the stadium would be as the only football game for the entire country to watch, in that you'd have 14 days between the conference championship game to get healed up. Also, last year, every team that played at home won their quarterfinal game. Your thoughts, which would you prefer, a home playoff game at LES or a bye into the quarterfinals? I will be right there with you, Mark. I would love to see a game at LES. Now, game in mid to late December is a pretty frosty and cold proposition for fans. And I speak that as a media member who'd be sitting in the press box, most likely, all warm. But yeah, I think it'd be awesome to have a home game in that circumstance. Matthew, hypothetically, if Jake Retzlaff would have endured his presumptive suspension of 7 games, he'd be returning this week. I actually will correct you on that, Matthew. It would have been last week because the 8th game was Iowa State. If that were the case, do you think he would have been the slotted to start against Texas Tech, or would Bear have won over the job? Bear would have won over the job. Here's the deal. Jake would have had to have every other quarterback on BYU's roster fall flat on their face to regain that position, it feels like, as the starting quarterback for BYU. That's a very simple answer on that one. Robert, question. Looking at what Bear has done so far this season, on paper, does he look like a freshman? If so, in what ways? And if so, if not, in what ways? Do you think the freshman issues will catch up with him at some point? Well, Robert, your last question first. I thought they were going to catch up with him at multiple points this season, and all he's done is bounce back from every supposed freshman mistake that I could ever point out to you. I love what Bear Bachmeier is, and what it is. He's unflappable. I use that term a lot about him, but he doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. He just plays the game of football in an incredible, just level, steady style of play. And it lends itself to him being a very, very successful quarterback as a result. So hopefully that answers your question. Robert, how does Tiger get away with that hair at BYU? As I understand it, and I think we had Connor Pay, who joined us weekly for the past 2 seasons, pointed out that the BYU honor code has been relaxed with regards to hairstyles. So yeah, you've got Tiger with a little bit of the dreadlock look, but you've got multiple other players, both members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and not, who are wearing longer hairstyles. Nusi Taumue Peau, man, look at that mane he's sporting. They have relaxed the hair standards at BYU. There's just no doubt about that. They can argue that they're not, but evidence is on the field. Let's see. Geez, other questions. We got to get through so many of these. Preston, Jay, I'm loving the show so far. In the situation that BYU loses to Texas Tech and Cincinnati, what are the chances that BYU makes the playoff? I would say slim to none. Just, I'm being blunt. If you lose those 2 games, you can kiss the college football playoff goodbye. You could probably plan on maybe playing at the Alamo Bowl or the like again, but you're not playing in the playoff if you lose those 2 games. You lose one of them, you're very much still in the mix. 11-1, be hard-pressed to say that you're left out. But 10-2, you're giving the college football playoff committee, much like last year, all the leeway to say, thank you, but no thanks. We're going to go with another team. Let's see. Also, come from Alan. Do you think that BYU's been holding back our playbook to simplify things for Bear, and when is the right time to open it up? I think we saw it opened up against Iowa State. I think we have finally seen it kind of flung wide open and saying, all right, here is the full offense. And I think it's been getting more and more opened up over the last few weeks, but it really feels like when LJ went down in that game, they kind of flung it wide open and said, hey, Bear, this is your time to shine. It's been really cool to see that and him playing the way that he does. Geez, other questions here. Injury updates. So like 5 or 6 of you guys have asked, what's updates on Siali Acera, Isaiah Glasker, Jack Kelly, LJ Martin? Hopefully all available for Texas Tech. Of those 4, I think the most likely to be a question mark is LJ, because you don't know what the situation is. And it's been obviously a really hush-hush situation with reports all over the place on him. Siali Acera, as I understand, is expected to be back for Texas Tech. I don't expect Isaiah Glasker and Jack Kelly, barring them just suffering an incredible injury, to miss any time. I think they have both been very intent on playing as much as possible, even with all the physical ailments they have suffered this season. I really do think it's been impressive the way that they've battled through things. Other questions that have come in here. Who on the team? I already answered that one. This comes in for Ammon. I've noticed that Reggie Frischnecht is getting some more playing time in the most recent game. And I haven't noticed him playing before, and I know he was injured early on in training camp. Is he someone that can start to get more playing time at wide receiver and make an impact there? I'll be honest, I didn't notice Reggie against Iowa State. Granted, I wasn't also looking for him. The biggest thing that he's got to do, he's got to prove he's reliable. And I tell you, it's a high standard that what Kalani Sitake expects of his wide receivers. Reggie's got undeniable gifts. He's tall, he's long, he's incredibly fast from what I understand, and he was ultra productive at the high school and junior college levels. I think in time that Reggie will emerge as a rotation piece at minimum for BYU at wide receiver, but he's got to live up to a standard that's set pretty darn high. Look at what Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston are doing. You got to be able to match that, and if you can't match it, you find it hard to get on the field with Kalani Sitake as your coach. Let's see, Thomas, do you think there's any chance, any high likelihood that the Big 12 will become the flagship of an entity like TNT or Amazon Prime as a direct competitor to ESPN and Fox in this next media rights negotiation in a few years? That's speaking of 2030. I can't rule it out to answer the question, Thomas, because you're looking for the ultimate bang for your buck. And in TNT being a cable network and having some linear options, that would be obviously advantageous. Now, does it have the same reach as an ESPN or a Fox? Probably not. But if they want to pony up and pay you the top dollar that you're looking for, yeah, you got to consider it. And Brett Yormark, he will be very thorough in seeking out the best deal or deals for the Big 12. I can assure you of that. Other question he asked, how much does BYU having mostly night games influence the viewership numbers of playing the media rights deals and or the inclusion in a future Super League? BYU draws strong ratings. Are they top tier? Probably not, but they draw strong ratings, especially in that late night window. And that will make BYU attractive to whatever entity college football ends up being. If it is that Super League that comes, BYU just keep winning and keep performing in terms of the TV ratings, and I think it'll take care of itself. If you prove that you are Big 12 Leviathan over time, the Super League would be hard-pressed not to take you because they want the best properties, speaking of the programs, in that Super League if it comes to it. Let's see. Josh, Brett Yormark is espousing a situation where all four P4 leagues get the same amount of CFP berths. Your thoughts on the impact for BYU, the Big 12, and college football in general with regards to that? If it's going to be equal, I'm all for it. If you can get the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC along with the Big 12 to get whether it's 2, 3, 4 automatic berths, if it's equal, everybody's all on the same level, playing fields level, I'm all for it. Make it happen. It's good for BYU because it means that they have equal access like everybody else in the Power 4 leagues. It's good for the Big 12 because, as I mentioned, it's even across the board. And for college football, you want to see some of those like the what I'm trying to say, the darlings, the words escaping me, but you want to see teams who are the upstarts and get those upsets. Speaking of the NCAA tournament, men's basketball and women's basketball side of things, where you get those teams that come out of nowhere and go on a run. Hard pressed probably to find more of that if you were to guarantee more slots to these leagues. But so long as it's equal across the board for the Power 4 leagues, sign me up. I'm all for that. And I know that Brett Yormark expressed that he wants to see that as well. All right. I think I got through 90% of those questions. If I did not get to your question, I sincerely apologize, but we're climbing up on nearly 40 minutes recording this podcast. And I know that some of you are going to, Jake, go all night. The parameters of the Locked On Network is it's supposed to be right around 30 minutes. So I have exceeded my allotted time. So as always, truthfully, enjoy your Halloween. Hope you guys have some fun, get some incredible candy. The dad tax is real for those of you who are parents. Trust me, I exert it on my kids all the time, and it's mainly to look for Butterfingers, but that's another story for another day. But as always, thank you for your support of this podcast. Hope you guys got some good intel or got your questions answered on this edition of the podcast. But hey, we'll have more throughout the weekend. I have got a bunch of content I recorded with Tim Lacombe on BYU basketball. I'm planning on putting that up tomorrow in advance of BYU's game against Villanova. A lot of thoughts on his expectations for BYU basketball, thoughts on Robert Wright III, the rest of the roster for Kevin Young, the construction of said roster. So we'll get to that, kind of a special edition on a Saturday without a BYU football game. And yeah, Monday, it is BYU basketball against Villanova. We're looking forward to Texas Tech. It's crazy. The month of November is shaping up to be an absolutely epic one for BYU in men's basketball and football and literally everything in between. By the way, congratulations to the women's soccer team. I should note this. They are the 8th seed officially in the Big 12 tournament. We'll be facing off against TCU as they try to keep their postseason hopes alive. It's been an up and down season for Jennifer Rockwood with a really, really young team, but cool to see them make the Big 12 tournament by virtue of beating Utah 2-0. Speaking of Thursday night. So That'll do it. As always, thank you for supporting the podcast. Please share it with your family and friends. If you have not done so, click the like button right here on YouTube. It's that thumbs up button. It's simple as that. As always, thank you for making it your first listen of the day, and come back tomorrow, quite literally, because we'll do a special edition with Tim Lacombe right here and be an everydayer on the Locked On Cougars podcast.